You're listening to Hardscape Growth, a podcast for hungry professionals who want to grow their businesses and level up. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Hardscape Growth Show. I'm your host, Alex from TechnoBlock, and today we are joined by Wes from SynkedUp. Once again, why? The guy's just good. He's got good information for us, and every time we have him on, we do really well with our audience reaction. So obviously, people like what you have to say, Wes. So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, thanks for having me back on. I like to share things from lessons that I can relate back to my own personal experience. And I just got back from Equip Expo, HNA, a couple weeks ago, and I had done a talk out there on 4 ways to close more proposals. And it might sound like obvious stuff. Like you're like, well, yeah, duh, of course, I know that's right. But there's a difference between knowing it and implementing it or making it real for you. Mm-hmm. And I kind of go down into like why I believe this simple stuff really matters. It's not like you have to get super complex or crazy magic sales abilities to close more jobs. It is in the simple stuff, and just doing the simple stuff really, really well is what moves the needle.
Yeah, I was at HNA too, and going around and talking with different contractors, and hanging out. We were hanging out at Rick's trailer after the show every day, and we'd have a few contractors over and grill up some burgers and some brats and stuff, and it was cool because we were just talking shop the whole time. Yep. And there were a lot of things that kept coming up, no matter who I was talking to, no matter where they were in the country. The same kind of topics were coming up. And one of them was how it has been harder to close sales this year, but not impossible.
Yeah.
And, when you ask them, like, what are the things that seem to make them successful, it really does seem to be like very simple things. Like there's nothing crazy about a sales process when you have it dialed in, and there's probably only like 3 to 5 key things that you got to keep in mind that really leave a good impression on the client that stack the odds in your favor.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like when you spend time thinking, like when it's so easy to fall into the trap of, oh, I'm missing something. There must be some advanced thing that I need to do. Or what's everybody else doing? Kind of like this human nature to feel FOMO.
Yeah.
And really, so many times the answer is right in front of us, and it's just doing what we already do better or more consistently. And
well, actually, if I sorry to cut you off, but if I think about it, like the last episode that I just recorded, I was talking about the Amazon management method. There's a book. And it's basically breaking down how Amazon manages their companies and what building blocks they kind of have as like these are core values of this is how we do it. And the number one thing is being 100% customer obsessed. And I think that's the key to a successful sales interaction, because it's not like you just said, you triggered it in my head because you said like some advanced thing. What's someone else? What are the other guys doing? Don't worry about that. Worry about what gives the customer the best experience possible, because if they feel really good about the experience that they had with you, you have a better chance than if you're just worried about doing better than the other guy. The other guy could be awful, and you doing better just makes you okay. Like, don't worry about that. Worry about the best possible experience for the human being who you are interacting with.
I love that, because I'm telling you, it's so easy to let the tail wag the dog. And it's to where like you think, oh, I got to do this advanced, like I got to get a video embedded into my proposal. It's got to be a 3D design, and sure, all good and all good and great things. But I love what you said about the North Star has to be obsessed on the customer, because maybe the customer doesn't care about seeing the video in the proposal, or you have to be reading the room, so to speak, and what does this customer really care about? What really actually moves the needle for them? And like make them feel heard. When they feel like they can connect and you're actually paying attention to them and you're not just running them through the meat grinder of your process, or not doing what you said you would do. Yeah, I get the quote back to you by the end of the week, and then Wednesday next week, they
You
still
still have it out.
you. You know, that's
Okay, so let's get into these things. Enough beating around the bush. Let's just dive into it. What are the things that, in your experience, designing, selling jobs, and now at SynkedUp, working with hundreds of companies across North America, what seem to be the things that really move the ball forward and get the deals done, and especially going into another season with a tough economy? These are things we have to pay attention to because you don't have the phone ringing off the hook anymore.
That's right.
Just,
Yeah.
Even if you are a phenomenal marketer, you do not have the phone ringing off the hook nonstop anymore. So every chance at bat, you need to get on base. You gotta.
You can't afford to squander leads. And well, I'll just read off the 4 things that I have here. And
All right, go for it.
I'm warning you, they sound simple, but I'm going to dig into them and share why I have those 4 things in my experience. But like nailing down your pricing, the cliche, know your numbers. Nailing down your pricing is number 1. And the reason I name the most obvious thing right here at the outset is because so many times we don't have our pricing locked in to a point where we feel confident in our own head that it is what it is, and instead we end up being in this world where we are willing to negotiate on the price, or we're having second thoughts or doubts on our own of like, are they going to go for it? It's too high. Do I have too much labor in there? Should I knock my markup back because there's expensive materials and there's a lot, the profit number is big? Like, just nail down your pricing and don't let just skip all of the agonizing over, is it right? If you nail down your pricing, the agonizing's done and you can just, there it is. And you can build processes around it, whether it's spreadsheets or software, to really make it fast.
Not bringing down your price, nailing down your price.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
yeah, there's a big difference.
So in other words, just being super confident, the price is the price is the price.
Yeah, and the reason I bring it up, again, I know it sounds
okay. No, go, because I was going to say why is that the most important thing in a sales process? Because
I literally talk to people that they build their quote, they have the price in 15 minutes.
Okay.
And then they sit on the stupid thing for 3 days and don't send it because
they're not sure.
Exactly.
Seems too high. Seems too low. Did I think of everything?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's another thing. This is fun. This is another thing I said in that episode was the decision making, the speed of decision making. The speed at which you make decisions is the speed at which your business advances.
That's right.
So if you're doing exactly what you just said, like, this is a $75,000 job, and then you're like hemming and hawing for 3, 4, 5 days, you could lose the job just because you're not sure. So you need to be able to have that confidence in your numbers, and to do that, you have to have your budgets, and you have to have your production hours, and you have to have your cost of materials, and you have to do all the things that we've talked about on the first episode that you joined us on like 2 years ago. You have to do that. That's what gives you the information that gives you the confidence to then be locked in on your price, because the faster you get that price into the hands of the customer, the faster they can make a decision. It's with you or it's with someone else. And if it's not with you, well, you move on to the next sales call.
Yeah, and that leads me perfectly to the next point, which is speeding up your quote turnaround time. Like, I'll pose a question for you to think about for a hot minute. Who's going to win the job? The person that has the cheapest quote, or the person that gets the quote back first? Who has the higher likelihood of winning that job?
I would say the quote first, because if they're anything like me, they just want to get this done and over with.
Nobody wants to agonize. You'd rather lock in a deal with a contractor that you trust than agonize over whether you're going to save 1 or 2 or 3%, And I did.
If it's like a 20% difference, that's a different story. But
yeah,
assuming that we're all in the competitive ballpark here, the first one in has a better chance. I would agree with that.
Usually, if there's a 20% difference, very rarely is that an apples to apples output. There's something different, whether it's contractor experience or something along those lines.
Yeah, and I'll say even from whether it's my personal experience of hiring contractors or services for my own home, or even in my professional experience, even if I know I need to get 2 or 3 bids on something, the first one to get back to me, regardless of the price, the first one to get back to me, unless it's like too fast. I think there's something to be said about too fast. Like if you can give me the price right there on the spot, sitting at the table, I don't know. Like you should have to think about it a little bit, unless it's a super straightforward job. Then there's a little asterisk there. But if there's a moderate to high level of complexity, I think you need at least a couple minutes to think about it. But I think the companies that are able to provide the quote the fastest inspire confidence in the consumer as well. Because I know from my point of view, when someone says, I will get you that quote by the end of the day, or I'll get you that quote after lunch, and then I get the quote and it's detailed and the price is there, even if the price is higher than I think or thought it would be, I have a certain level of confidence, like these guys are on top of their stuff.
They know their stuff. Yeah.
Like this is someone that I feel like I can trust because they seem to have their stuff dialed in.
Yeah.
And when you talk to someone like, yeah, let me get you that quote, and it's like 2, 3, 4, 5 days later or a week later, or like I'm reaching back out to them like, hey, any news on that pricing? I'd really like to make a decision. Like I don't have the same level of confidence in that potential partner or a contractor or whatever service I'm trying to hire. And the other thing is, not only do I not have the same level of confidence, because I don't have the same level of confidence, I feel more confident that I can now negotiate. I feel there's an uncertainty. I detect the uncertainty. So now I'm like, you know what? You come back at me of a 40. Nah, I only have a budget for 30. What can you do? But if you came back to me right away, it's 37.7. I'd be like, I'll still try, but I trust your number a lot more because you came back to me in like an ideal time frame.
Yeah, and it's how you do anything is how you do everything. It's an indicator. Coming back late or missing your commitment to the client on when you're going to have the quote back is an indicator of what the rest of the experience with you is going to be like for that customer. You know? And so if you tell me you're going to get it to me by Friday, and Tuesday I'm texting you wondering like where it's at, not cool. At minimum, if it's going to take you longer, communicate. Tell the client, hey, XYZ reasons made me, it's going to be another day or whatever. But
you can't underestimate the importance of that too. Like, I'm just thinking again, my personal experience or my experience, I did over a decade in sales, prior to being in marketing, but on the marketing side, I am receiving a lot of sales interactions because people are always trying to sell us services, software, whatever. I think there's something to be said about people get that people are busy. I know that even myself, I'm guilty of it. Like I say, I'll get something out to you by the end of the week, and then on Monday, I'm sending it to you with a sorry, I told you I'd get you by the end of the week, but I couldn't get to it. But there's something to be said about giving the heads up. Like, listen, I'm a little busier than I thought I would be. I needed a bit more time. Take that time. If you're going to be late, you're going to be late, but give the people the heads up. Yes, people are understanding that you're busy, but people feel somewhat disrespected a little bit when you make a promise to them and then you don't uphold that promise. It erodes the trust that you're trying to build because right away you committed to something and you fell through on that commitment. I'm trying to trust you with $100,000 project at my own home, and the first thing that you said you were going to do, you didn't do it. So it's super, super, super important. And
this is why I say, like, it's the simple little things. You're like, well, duh. Well, there's nothing new that we're talking about here. Well, these things carry weight. Like I'll repeat again, how you do anything is how you do everything. And if you're going to miss a commitment, even if it's just a verbal, like, yeah, I'll get it to you by the end of the week as you're walking out the driveway, even if you miss that to the client, it's like, okay, what's it going to be like on the scheduled kickoff date? What's it going to be like on, does this guy have his act together? Are the materials going to be here on time? Or is there going to be delays for the whole project? All of this stuff.
It's a different world from what it was the last 3 years. So everybody got accustomed to, we're slammed. I'll get you something when I can get you something. And that was acceptable. It's not anymore.
No.
And if you didn't get that wake up call this season, you are 100% going to get that wake up call going into next season. So this is not something to neglect. Buy yourself enough time, understand your numbers enough that you can be a little bit faster in your decision making of putting the quote out, but give the customers a realistic time frame. And if you cannot meet that time frame, the second you anticipate that you cannot meet that time frame, give them the heads up.
Yep.
Buy yourself a bit of grace in that relationship, because it can only help you. It can't hurt you.
Yeah, in a way, you could almost make an argument that doing that, like, say you need an extra day. If you tell them the day before that, hey, I'm going to need an extra day, that almost, I'm not saying you want to do that, but that just speaks to the character of the person you are, I'd almost say that it raises the level of trust. Like, I can trust this guy. He's going to tell me when something's not right,
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. Okay, what's the next one?
So the next one is the filtering the leads. So it's really easy, especially when you start feeling a little desperate or like, oh man, I'm not getting quite the lead flow that I used to. It's really easy to start going out there and spending time on leads that frankly are never going to buy from you. And one of the most effective ways that when I was at Tussy, and Tussy to this day still uses it, we called it the project planner. One of the most effective ways that we found to qualify and vet and filter solid leads was a tool that we developed on Tussy's website called the project planner. And basically it's a visual form. It's basically like filling out a form. So what it looks like is well, let me explain the process that Tussy used for many years, and it works really well. Before I go into explaining the process, I'll just say this: Derek Matthews, sales and designer at Tussy Landscaping, sold $5.5 million last year, 90% close rate by himself.
Well, is that good or is that bad?
Really good. 5.5 one sales.
I'm just saying, because like that you close almost everything, it could also mean that you're,
I hear you. So let me explain the process, and then it might shed some light on that. So basically, you can filter leads in any given way. Like a common one out there is consultation fees, like you charge to come out and give an estimate. Some people, it's kind of a love or hate thing. Some people are against it, others are for it. I don't really care, because in my mind, it's not about the transaction. It's not about the money amount. Like, even if you charge $100 consultation fee, you're barely, if maybe not even covering your costs of time and gas and everything else, right? So it's not about making money on it, or you're not in the business of selling consultations. You're in the business of getting deposit checks.
It's a commitment level.
Yeah,
I think that's the mindset there.
Yeah, exactly. It's about it's about the fact that a transaction is taking place that signifies that this customer is actually serious. I don't care if the consultation fee is $1. There's a transaction taking place, And so, like him or hate him, if you don't want to do consultation fees, find something else, But anyway, the Tussy process was when you called in and you were like, hey, I have a project in mind. There was the office admin vetted the lead to her ability based off of a script. But she's not a designer. She's not in the field. Like, she's literally an office admin. So her ability to vet and filter is limited. But that just points back to the future steps in the system, in the process here, that really, it makes it awesome, because you can put an office admin in this role and protect your time. So anyway, office admin.
Okay, so you're saying having a scripted structure, set of questions.
Yeah.
With desired answers. I think that's the other thing too. That's a detail that we so often forget. Like, okay, great, I created a checklist with questions. I can give this to anyone. And then you look at, these answers aren't good. I don't want to meet with this person. And you need to also give some guidance, like the good answer, bad answer.
Right.
If you have 3 bad answers, this is a script for sorry, not for us.
Right. Or here's someone you can call,
Yeah. But yeah, I like what you just said there. Like, you can protect your time and put someone in between, because that's a lower value task for you to do as an owner if you build out the system.
Yep, but you have to have the system. So many times owner-operators get stuck on, I'm somehow the magic, like, it's impossible to take what I know and transfer it off to someone else. But the system is key. And
it's hard to do, because you need to dedicate a shitload of time to doing
Building a
it.
process
That's
is really
to
hard.
do every single thing that you do. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
The vetting process. All right, sit down, write it out.
Yeah.
I like to use ChatGPT for a lot of things when I'm just blocked. Like I know I need to do this thing, but I don't like it's just not coming to you. You're trying to start. So like I will go on to ChatGPT and it's free, right? So like it's good for this because it costs you nothing and it can save you a bunch of time. And it can give you different angles that you weren't thinking of. But like let's say I want to do like I would ask ChatGPT like can you provide me with a pre-qualification checklist for customers calling into my landscape business? These are the services that I offer. This is the type of project that I'm looking for. And it'll say, sure. And then it'll take a stab at it. And then you hit regenerate and it'll take another stab at it. And then you can either like tweak the prompts that you use, or it's good enough as a base. And then you copy that, you paste it into a Word doc or into OneNote or whatever you're using, Google Sheets, whatever. And then, it got your brain going like, okay, yeah, that's true. Those are a couple good questions. I have some better questions though. And you take over from there. But I like to do that a lot when it's time to create checklists or processes or job descriptions, things like that, because it's too much to just start from scratch from your brain when you don't have the time.
Yeah.
And like I have to do 10 other things. So like use AI to help with that. It can chop, at least 30 minutes off a process that'll probably take you an hour and a half, 2 hours otherwise.
It gets the creative juices flowing for you.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to edit something and refine it than it is to start from scratch.
100%. That's a much shorter way to say what I just said. Thank you.
And I like what you brought up about the process, because I wasn't actually going there, but I want to pause on that for a minute, because we tend, as owner operators, it's really easy to think like, well, nobody else. It's really hard to train someone else what I do, so I'll just keep doing it myself. But guess what happens when you keep doing it yourself? You miss calls. You don't get back to people on time.
You can't get that quote out by Friday.
Exactly. That's hurting you a whole lot more than an office admin potentially giving the customer an answer you would not have given. Right? And so to your point, build the process. Like start small, start simple. It doesn't have to be elaborate. But the back to the Tussie process, the office admin takes the call. She listens to what they're saying and like, that sounds right. Okay, cool. So we have a $95 consultation fee that's payable now to book the call. As soon as, so I'll take your credit card over the phone. And then as soon as the payment's processed, we select the time. And oh, by the way, the only times that are available are Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Like no exceptions. And that's by design, like, because it's not like, when are you available? It's no, we're the professional. We are in demand, even if you're not, by the way. We are in demand.
No, but that's your commitment level.
Yeah.
Back to like some people charge, some people don't. Your paywall can be your time. Your time is valuable, so it could be that too. I like that idea. And we're available between this time and this time. That's the block. You want us? That's when you can meet us.
It just measures it's another way to measure commitment level. Exactly what you said. Because
I like it.
It's not that you can't go do a quote on Monday. It's just that, are these people committed? And if there's sometimes.
Well, yeah, and Monday's probably not ideal for you because you're starting the week. You're getting your crew out on the job sites. Like, we got to get this thing rolling. Like, I don't want to do 12 things today. I'd rather do 2 if I could. To your point, do them really well.
When you start structuring and building processes, you need to block your time. Like Mondays I do X, Tuesdays I do consultations. So, you have to. Otherwise, it's a rat race and chaos all the time.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyway, and there's times when people have pushed back on that part of it pretty hard. Like, hey, I'm a doctor or whatever. Like, I can't. It's like, nah. I mean, if you want it, you want it. If you're gonna go buy a house, are you not gonna take off work to go look at a showing when they have open? You're gonna make time for something you want. So it's just a way of measuring commitment.
I like it. I like it a lot.
So after that, then as soon as the consultation fee is paid, the slot is booked. The next thing that happens, this is what I was getting to on the project planner. The office admin says, "Okay, appreciate it, awesome. I'm going to send you an email with a link to our project planner. I need you to fill that out before the appointment. And no worries if you don't get it done beforehand. We'll just have to reschedule." You see my point? Like, it's like you have to fill this project planner out. And then the office admin sends that out. The client gets an email, and there's a link to a project planner. And what that project planner is, so you click on that link, you open up a screen with a whole bunch of visual tiles. Well, actually, it says start building my project. And then you click on the start building my project, and there's a whole bunch of visual tiles of, I wish I could show it to you, but it's a podcast, of like images of like small landscape, medium landscape, large landscape, small patio, medium patio, large patio, and a description, some parameters, and a price range on each, like small, medium, large. So like landscape, water feature.
It's a list of questions with visual representation so that there's no ambiguity with the answer that the client gives you.
And so
I want a medium-sized patio. Yep. That's what that looks like. Oh, okay. No, that's big for me. All right. Okay, good. So you want a small patio.
Yeah. And then the client can literally hit select small, add to project. Just keep adding. Oh, I want lighting too. Add to project. Mm-hmm. And what it's doing is it's adding up the total, like, the small patio is 15 to 25K. The lighting is 5 to 8K. Really fat, big ranges. Is not a quote. It's not a quote. People get hung up on this sometimes. It's not a quote. The purpose of it is the first and foremost purpose of it is to educate the consumer as to what things cost, because they don't know. How many times have you spent so much time on a client that's so excited to do this amazing large project? She has a whole stack of Instagram photos, like they're $150,000 to $300,000 backyards, and then you go through the whole process and spend hours with that person, and then it's like, oh yeah, and I was thinking of spending 30 to 40 grand. They don't know. It's not their fault. Like whose responsibility is it to educate the client? It's our responsibility.
The professional. Yep.
And
I like it.
There's people that are really, really good at handling this question, the budget question in person, and they have a really good way, like really good rapport, really good skill, so to speak, in handling this. But what the project planner does is it's a process that literally anybody can do. And it minimizes the need for you to develop your own skill magic, And what I love about it is, what's happened sometimes at Tussie? They call in, they pay the consultation fee, they agree to a time slot in the slots that are available. They get the project planner. 10 minutes later, they call back and cancel the consultation. You just saved yourself a boatload of time. And it's not
like, yeah. Send me the thing. Well, you know what?
And
I don't want it that bad.
Yeah. And it's like people sometimes, well, how can I get a budget over the phone? Or do I ask him, in a drop down of, are you thinking 0 to 20K, 20 to 50, 50 to 100? Like, what are you thinking? Like, and there's many ways you can do it, but I love that project planner because it does not feel like the clients don't want to feel like they're showing you their cards. And sometimes clients are like, well, I don't even know what my budget is because I don't know what things cost. And what I love about the project plan is like a two-way communication thread. It's A, it's educating the client as to what things cost, and B, it's telling you what their commitment is to spend. And
I like it.
And
I like it. I've seen, I know, like, I don't know which way's better, to be honest. Let me ask you this. So, like, if I take the example, the classic example I give all the time is Cedar Springs up near Toronto. Because to my knowledge, they were the first ones to do this kind of thing, but they did it like right up front on their website. It wasn't like call and then we'll send you this thing. It's just, welcome to Cedar Springs. Interested in our services? Click here, and then like start to build out your project. And like right away, like, no, I can't afford that. And like the price ranges were never low. Like this is a premium brand. They do high end work. They always have. They always will. And this was like 2000, I want to say 2010.
Okay.
It was on their website. 11.
Yeah.
But like they're not intaking anything. It's really just a filter. Like, don't even call us if like you're not here. And I wonder which method is wiser, because on your side, at least you're populating a CRM. Well, I mean, if you are collecting that data, but you are populating a CRM with interested parties who may not have the means for it today, but have expressed intent. Yeah. Whereas what they're doing is they're just filtering out at the beginning. They're not wasting any time, but they're also like someone who's on the cusp, but they're not, they're a year away. They got to save up a bit more, maybe. They don't know what they lost potentially. Yeah. No, or at least that's the way they used to do it. I haven't checked recently, but I think there's something to be said with the way that you're doing it, going into the economy that we're, or not going into, in the economy that we are. I think it's good because this is like those recap episodes of shows where it's all flashbacks. But like if I go back to the episode with Todd Tamatlack, one of the things that he was saying was like, expect another spike, another surge in demand for our type of services in the market in the next few years, because all the smaller jobs are not canceled. They're all on hold right now because interest rates and inflation are so ridiculous. As soon as those things calm down again, everyone who's sitting in a backyard that would have spent $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 but just isn't doing it right now, they will do it, and there will be another surge for that.
Yeah.
So all of those people who are like, not for you right now, or not today, that's a great set of people to tap like every spring and every fall. Like, hey, is it next season? Hey, is it in the next 6 months? Hey, we're accepting, we're designing jobs for the next 6 months to 12 months. Do you want to get on the list? Everyone wants to be on the list. Like there is that opportunity, I think. So this episode is brought to you by hardscaper.com. The Hardscaper mission is to empower industry professionals with the skills, inspiration, and confidence they need to take their businesses to new heights. Struggling with training programs for your team? Looking for helpful tips to build a better company? Subscribe today to gain access to hours of interactive on-demand hardscape construction and business courses for free. Check out hardscaper.com.
Yeah,
big tangent from what you just said, but just something to keep in mind.
It's a very valid point, and the way I would do it, just technically speaking, is I would just throw an email address form right in front before I show you. So you're like, hey, here's the tool, here's the project planner, like right on the front end of the website. Click start building my project, and before you can actually see anything, you have to enter your name and email. That's what I would do. So you're populating your CRM, but then you give them full access. Now I know who you are. Now I can do exactly.
Yeah. That's what we do on our website, actually.
Yeah.
So on TechnoBlock, on TechnoBlock.com, if you want to find a pro and you want to know how much it should cost, you fill out this thing, and then you give us your email address, and then your zip code, and we'll give you some Techo pros in your area who are accepting work right now, who are fit for the budget that you've identified.
Yeah.
So it's one of the advantages of being a Techo pro.
There you go.
Looking for work. I'm not saying we're going to fill up your entire pipeline, but you might get a couple nice ones here and there. Doesn't hurt.
Yeah, but to your point, it is a good idea to gate value. So you just get at least an email so you know who they are, and then you can continue to run your automations or your marketing activities again.
Yeah, there you go. That's how you save that. Great save. Okay, so filtering leads. Is there anything else you want to say on that?
So no, that's basically right. The project planner is the last step. If you want to see it, you can go to TussLandscaping.com. Cedar Springs also has a very good version of it. I think Derek and Cedar Springs actually talked way back in the day, and that's maybe where the idea is. Yeah, but it's super effective, and I think, like, consultation fee aside, scheduling fee aside, I love the vibe of the project planner because the client isn't like a deer in the headlights when you ask them, well, what were you thinking of spending? It's like that the client never perceives that there's a question being asked like that. It's more of like, oh, cool. So this is what this costs. Oh, pool's 150 grand. Well, okay. Maybe we just designed for it, and maybe that's all we do right now, and we do the rest of it later. Or, it's an educational tool.
Yeah, but the other thing that does is it contributes to the first 2 points that you made too. The nailing down your pricing, like you're upfront, like this is what things cost. So it's a lot easier for you to be like, that's my quote.
Yeah.
That's the price. And the speed part, like I'm seeing right there before my eyes, I'm building out the project. It's going to cost me about this much.
Yep.
So even if it takes 2-3 days for you to get me the quote, I still know we're talking about 100 to 150,000 or 120 to 135, like depending on how precise your project planner is, like I think that those are, it's all a big wheel of experience for the client, and all these things need to tie together. But the guiding principles are the things that you're going through right now. Nailing down the numbers, speed, and filtering leads are the first 3. So let's go to number 4.
The fourth one is probably the weakest of them all. Just having a professional proposal. Like, don't be yellow legal padding it. Don't do Word docs. Like, find a way to get a professional proposal. If you do them in person, make sure they're looking good. If you do them digitally, let the client sign and get a down payment invoice right on, like make it easy, like be the easiest person to do business with.
Well, why is that the weakest one?
Well,
That's like the showmanship aspect, right?
that's my own perception in terms of like, oh yeah, the filter is really, really important. Nailing down your price is really, really important. Like looking professional, again, an obvious thing, but being the easy.
Okay, well, hold on there, because like that's again, it's a question of perception. So you're saying looking professional. Looking professional is different for everybody. So what do you mean when you say looking professional?
What I mean is, if I get like back to putting myself in your like what you were saying earlier, like if I'm hiring services for something, if I get a just a pen written thing on a carbon copy thing, or if I get a Word doc, I'm like, yeah, okay. I immediately have a perception of what type of business this is.
Okay, but let's jump ahead a little bit. It's 2023.
Yeah.
I get it that people are still doing quotes by hand, but they're not listening to this podcast. The people who are listening to this podcast have some level of sophistication to what they're doing that puts them light years ahead of a sketch on a napkin and a bid on a piece of carbon copy paper. So what does professional mean in that context?
Well, I go back to how you do anything's how you do everything. Because if I have like, wow, this is legit. This is professional. Oh, I can just sign. Oh, I can select what I want and don't want. And there's options here for me. Awesome. As soon as I sign, like, oh, now I pay my down payment. Great. This was easy. Half the battle of getting that check is the friction of like, oh, I got to drive 40 minutes to go out there and pick it up. Or, like make it as easy as possible to do business with your clients. Like that client.
So what are the things? Like, how do I do that?
Well,
right now, let's say I have my quote, template. I'm inventing a scenario.
Yep.
Okay. I build out my quote. I'm using like Google Sheets to do all my numbers, right? I throw my quote onto a Google Doc. I save it as a PDF. I send it to the customer via DocuSign for a signature.
Yeah. There's tons of like free, like HelloSign, DocuSign, Proposalify, Panda Docs. There's all kinds of products out there that let you do everything I just said digitally. Ideally, your business management software has that all baked in. So it's literally like from client consultation to building the quote to hitting send, all inside of one system, managed all in one place. It just, again, speed to turnaround time.
Okay. Are there other things that are part of that presentation or part of that proposal? Example, the drawings, renders, list of materials, samples, like in your head and in your experience, what is if you had to rattle off a checklist right now of like top-notch proposal meeting, what does it include?
To me, it's descriptions. Well, it's broken down by line items based on the decisions the client can make. Like I don't just say backyard makeover, one big fat line item. It's like, here's the patio and the pool deck. Here's the pavilion and the outdoor kitchen. Here's the lighting. Here's the outdoor audio. Like that way, if the client's like, ooh, this whole thing altogether came in 20 grand over than what I wanted to spend. Well, cool. I can just shut off the lighting and I'm in my budget and I can do the lighting later. So you don't,
so you're not saying like pavers, bedding,
no,
base,
no. And here's why.
They're job components: patio, pool deck, kitchen island 2, shade structure, lighting, audio.
Yeah.
Their buckets.
Present the proposal in a way that the client can read it and say, I want that or I don't want that. I'm not a fan of what itemized proposals are, like with like the bedding, the pavers, the joint sand, the edge restraint. I'm not.
It's like getting heated seats in your truck and it's like leather, radiant heating element.
Exactly.
Circuit board.
The reason I'm not a fan
cables
of it is because the client's not going to understand it. It's Greek to them.
Yeah.
Make your proposal readable from the client's perspective, so I know what I need to know to make a decision. If you give me all kinds of, like, sometimes I talk to people sometimes that feel like, oh, but that's what makes me look professional, all the tiny little details in there. I'm like,
no, it can be part of your discussion, but don't put it on the bid. It's irrelevant to them.
I mean, if you want to have a bit of a about us and who we are and the process we use to install, and we use, industry engineered approved, methods of construction, sure. That's not.
That could be like what you could do if that's really important is patio built to
spec.
my landscaping company's specifications. See Annex 1. And Annex 1 is like cross sections and all this technical stuff that if that's part of your brand and part of the experience that your customers come to expect from you, great, put it there, but it doesn't have its place in the proposal.
100%. And if you do itemized proposals where even the pricing is shown per item, what the client's going to look at is look at the most expensive thing in that. It's like, hey, do you really need that? Or is there a cheaper option of that? It's like they're starting to ask you.
And then we're debating over the wrong stuff.
Yeah, you're debating exactly. The energy of the conversation is being won or lost over the wrong points.
Okay. So we have itemized proposal. What else is part of that interaction?
I would like to see before photos, like show that I put some effort into, like, snap, before photos while you're out there in the consultation, include that as part of the design.
You're selling the dream and doing that too.
Yeah.
You're not only are showing you did your homework, but you're also selling the dream of like, this is what you have right now. Yeah. And this is what I'm proposing to build for you.
Yeah. And depending what kind of company you are, if you're doing multi-6-figure backyards, and obviously those are 3D designs. If you're doing 20 by 20 cookie cutter patios, I've watched Derek sell a six-figure project on literally the back of a napkin, like pencil sketch and paint lines.
It's doable, but it's not, for most people, they expect more right now.
And it's like, again, you don't want your process to be the tail that wags the dog. Like, you're trying to optimize to get that down payment check signed in your hands or payment made. And I've seen people have like a 6-step design process. And granted, yes, there are projects that need that for sure. I'm not saying you don't need that, but there's many projects where it becomes the tail that wags the dog, and it's too heavy of a process for what you're selling. And to me, that threshold would be like less than $100,000, or maybe even for sure less than 50. Like, it's more of a
less than 50. I would agree.
Yeah.
I think the expectation now and the nature of the market, I think once you get once you're in that 75, 80, I mean, you're darn close to $100,000.
I'm willing to be proven wrong.
If that's going to give you that edge,
yeah, for sure.
Especially that, like, you can sub this stuff out, like find designers.
Yeah.
And even the designers that I talk to, like, they have some junior kid who's like doing the render after. So like, it happens fast and it's not as expensive as the level of sophistication and the speed at which I can get these designs is going like this, and the cost to get them is going like this.
Yeah.
This is a great thing.
Yeah.
Because the expectation of the clients is also, by the way, my hand is going up and down. So I'm saying the accessibility and the level of sophistication and the level of realism of the renders and the design proposals is going up.
That's right.
The cost to get them is going down.
Yeah.
The expectation of the clients to have something like that is going up. Now, here's the caveat to that. The level of accuracy and the level of build off of these plans quality, in my opinion, from what I'm seeing, is a bit all over the map right now as a result of that. Because design services are becoming so ubiquitous, the ability to take that and turn into what I'm building, it's not just like, because it's not my designer, it's not me who did it, it's someone on the other side of the country or somewhere else who may or may not have taken the time to do it themselves, who may or may not have subbed it out to somebody else or delegated it to someone more junior, and they may or may not have taken the time to inspect the quality of work, make adjustments before they get it back to me. So that's been my personal experience, and that's something to watch out for.
Yeah.
Because that's something to keep in mind. Because I know this is something I keep bringing up, is like, work with designers, up your design game, that's going to give you an edge. But that does not come with just like magic pill, I found a designer, I'm good. Again, another tangent, but just like something that like
it's a worthwhile one to bring up, because and I before I say this, let me just preface it by saying this is my opinion. I'm sure there's people out there that believe strongly at a 180, and that's okay. But for me, a design is purely conceptual. I don't want to be haggling with a client over the last payment on the job because the patio edge is 6 inches different than what the design showed. And so setting expectations properly is a big deal. And like, one of the ways that Tussie does that is like saying, listen, we'll do a design, And by the way, it's conceptual. It's to show you
Yeah.
it's not,
It's a concept drawing.
It's not a CAD that's down to the inch scale. You know, it's literally to let you visualize. The purpose of the design is to let you visualize what we're going to build. And so often when we get into a big multi six-figure project like that, you know, things change. You see ideas come up and you're like, hey, this would look awesome, or there'd be this functionality if we made this little tweak. And you can just make those decisions on the fly. Like, hey, client, this is what we're thinking. What do you think of this? Yes. You know, and have a lightweight. Like, I don't like having a super heavy, like, oh, you know, let's measure it, let's get it off to scale, let's do everything perfect. Now, I know that's my opinion. There's probably people out there that disagree with that. I just like it to be, again, optimized for speed and efficiency, and keep the discussion and negotiation points on what should be discussion and negotiation points.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on proposals?
I forgot to hit the 2 ways to screw up on the know your numbers. The two ways to screw up pricing or profit on a job. And
okay, let's do that quick. So
yeah.
are we going backwards?
Yeah, I'm going back.
Or we're still first. Oh yeah, we're going all the way back up to the top.
Yep.
All right.
All the way back up to the very
okay. One. Okay. So hold on. Just everyone, we talked about this before recording, but not everyone knows what we're talking about.
Yes.
So we hit the 4 things: nail it down your pricing, the speed of the proposal into the hands of the customer, filtering the lead so you're not wasting time and you're spending time with the right people. Again, these things sound simple, but like we've been talking for almost an hour on these 4 things. So obviously there's a lot of detail involved. And then proposal is professional, and what professional means. But now we're going back up to the top with the numbers, because there's 2 key pitfalls that you keep seeing repeatedly. Yep. This is where people mess up on those numbers.
Yeah.
So let's hit those quickly, and then I want to toss a question out to the audience that they can answer through a bunch of different channels I'll get to in a second.
Sounds good. So there's something that's been kind of stewing in my mind as I have seen, the longer I do this, working with hundreds of companies all across North America, helping them with their numbers, watching them win or lose in their business, is you can really boil down this whole know your numbers thing to there's 2 ways to screw it up. One is getting the math wrong, which is kind of what we were hitting at the beginning of this episode, which is like, you know, solve that math problem, get it done, lock it in, and stop agonizing over it. And so one is getting the math wrong. Doing a company budget solves that. When you build a company budget, you're essentially telling the budgeting tool, my labor costs this, my materials cost this, my subs I spend this on, I have this equipment, I have this overhead. Bam, what should my markup be for overhead recovery and profit to achieve goals? Mm-hmm. That's what it is. And by the way, we can do that for free. I'll just give a plug to that again. We're doing those for free. We'll use the same link that we did the last time.
Okay. Yeah. So link in the description.
Yeah.
If you want to do that call. We also have the course that you built on hardscaper.com, which will walk you through all of this stuff we're talking about, how to do it yourself. And then you can either do it with Wes's software, or you can do it on your own. There's a free template to download that you can work with and you can use for projects as long as you want.
Yep.
And if you want to invest in software, you can invest in software, but that's worth it too. That's on hardscaper.com. That's a budgeting, pricing, and job costing course. And it's really, really well done, because it really walks you through all that stuff. Building a company budget, turning that into pricing for a project, and then doing the analysis once the job is built. Were we right? Were we wrong? And what do we need to fix?
Yep. And to your point, in this day and age, knowledge, information is not the bottleneck anymore. Like, you know, you can go do it for free by yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's it. You got free calls, free courses, free. And it's good.
What you pay for is the speed and automation. That's what the software, you know, that's what you pay for. But anyway, moving on from that. So there's 2 ways to screw it up. One is not having your math dialed in. Doing a company budget fixes that. Go to the course.
Guessing.
Call.
Stop guessing.
Yep. And then 2 is production capacity, because I have seen companies that do a budget and on paper they have the math dialed in, but what they continuously do, and it eats their lunch, is they bid a job for 100 hours and it takes them 150.
They're guessing again.
Yep. And they're not tracking how
That's because they're not doing the job costing part.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's the production capacity.
Right? They're doing the budget. The budget makes sense. the bids make sense, but then they're not stopping and looking like, okay, is the reality of the build reflective of what I bid? And if I made a mistake, am I correcting that mistake on the next one? And too often, what happens is we wait till the end of the year to do these things.
Yeah, or never.
or never. That's even worse, obviously. But if I wait till the end of the year, my memory is fuzzy and my memory tends to work in my favor.
That's right.
I don't know about you, but I tend to remember things like, it wasn't that bad. We're fine. These are things that are common pitfalls. These are human nature things that the more that you have the discipline of budget the year, bid out the project, build the project, log everything, analyze the project. And that needs to be the cycle. Otherwise, you're guessing.
100%.
And if you're guessing, then you can't nail down your numbers. If you can't nail down your numbers, you can't quickly provide that price to the customer. So you're forced to do more bids than you need to, which forces you to not filter your leads properly because you just take anything coming in because you're desperate. And then because you're desperate, your proposals are all over the place and you're not professional because you can't stay on top of it. So all these things tie together. You need to know your numbers.
100%. It's a vicious cycle.
It's a business.
You miss one piece of that puzzle and it's a domino effect, you know? And to your point, what I'm seeing is people get so excited about nailing the numbers in, and for the first time they see the math, like, this is awesome. I'm locked and loaded. I'm good to go. And they don't exercise the discipline needed to do exactly what you said. Log how long it actually took. How many receipts did we actually pay on this job? You know, and it's like, what, dude, I'm just a 5-man show. I know what, you know, it's one crew and I know how many days that took. And we were about maybe 10% over.
You have less margin for error.
Exactly.
Everything's riding on your shoulders. Like, you gotta, I get it. I'm as guilty as anyone. I talk about documenting processes. I'm not good at it. You know, that's why I mentioned the ChatGPT thing, because I know I suck at it. So I use that to get me in the motion of doing it. But if you don't do these things, the smaller you are, the more every mistake that you make hits you directly. When you're a bigger company, the mistakes, they can multiply. Like, one mistake and 1% is a very big number, but it's still 1%. But when it's 1% on a company that is generating $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, and all your annual salary is $75,000, $80,000, and that one mistake that you made because you're not taking the time to do this stuff is docking your pay by $5,000. Well, you know what? You just lost 5 on 75. You just lost 7% of your annual revenue, your annual income as a human being trying to provide for your wife and for your kids and pay your mortgage and pay for all this stuff and still pay all your employees and still pay all your bills and still market. You can't afford to make these mistakes. That's why you're on the show so often, because there's so many different ways to talk about these different things and come back into, it comes to the one simple thing. Is you need to know your numbers. And I know it's a cliche, and I know I have friends on other podcasts that make fun of this line, but it's the truth. We need to take the time, and we're going into the off season, and I know I'm repeating myself, but it's worth repeating. Take the time to do that math, because if you don't do that math, you're guessing. And if you're guessing, you could be making mistakes. You could be right. You could be wrong. You don't know. And I personally prefer to have that certitude moving forward in operating a business, that I know the decision I made is the right decision based on the information I have.
Yeah.
And sometimes you could still be wrong. Don't get me wrong. The data could mislead you, but at least you know what you're looking for and what you're not, and you can correct from there because you know what you got wrong.
Yeah. The truth, right? The unequivocal truth is that we all screw up sometimes. All of us. No, none of us are exempt from it. The difference between the ones that make it and don't make it is the ones that make it know when they screw up. And exactly. Not think, not feel, not
they know when and they know what.
Yes. And it's relatively easy to do a sit down for an afternoon and build a company budget and have that math get locked in and be right on paper. But not logging, not job costing, not tracking hours on every job. That's essentially what I mean. Tracking hours on every job, making sure every receipt has a job number.
You need to do this stuff.
Yeah, that's essentially what I mean. It's literally just tracking hours and tracking receipts to a job without exception. Not doing that is where most of the industry fails to have the discipline or the leadership across their team to ask their guys to do it without exception. And that is how you end up looking good on paper, working hard, doing incredible projects. Instagram loves you, but your bank account is not. And
without naming, I know some guys that like they got a hell of a wake up call this year. Guys that looked like they were superstars and they were on top of the world, and whoo, that disappeared real quick. I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm just saying like it's the reality. I learned of one yesterday. I was floored when I found out. They seemed like they had everything together. On the surface, everything was great. They ran out of money. How the hell do they run out of money? They're like at 7 crews. They're doing jobs all over. They're out of money.
And if you're waiting,
happens more often than you think.
If you're waiting for your checking account to tell you that there's something wrong, by the time you learn that, it's too late.
It's too late. Yeah. Okay. Enough ranting.
This was good. Okay. This was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always fun when we have you on. Okay, so my question to the audience, and if you listen to this on Spotify, you can answer the question because there's a little question that we put on there. So we're going to ask with regards to the proposals. I'm curious. How do you propose projects? Like what's on a proposal for you, and what makes a good proposal in your books? The reason I'm asking is because I would like to be able to share that information with our audience, because I think sales is one of the most important abilities that we need to develop in the coming months. It is where we're going to make or break our seasons. So if we can share amongst the community of listeners here what makes a killer proposal or what is helping you sell jobs right now, let us know. So if you're listening on Spotify, if you look, there's a little Q&A under the description. That's where you can answer that question, or you can send us a message directly on @hardscaper_ on Instagram. So just look for the @hardscaper account, shoot us a DM. And I'm curious, and if I really like your answer, well, maybe I'll call you and we'll get you on the show and we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to mention before we sign off here is that link. So Wes and his team are doing free consultation calls, no strings attached. They'll walk you through your budget. They'll make sure that your numbers are dialed in and you're making the right financial decisions with your company. And that link will be in the description of this episode. So just open on whatever, if you're watching us on YouTube or you're listening on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, or you're on hardscaper.com streaming it there, in the notes of the show, you'll see that link. Click that link, book a time, and talk to Wes and run through your numbers.
Yep. There's no reason.
All right, dude. Thank you very much for joining us on another episode. And until next time, everybody, work hard, pave harder, and we'll see you next week on the Hardscape Growth Show. You've been listening to Hardscape Growth, a podcast for hungry professionals who want to grow their businesses and level up. Each episode is all about taking the next step in running your business, so make sure you never miss a show by subscribing on your favorite podcast player. And if you're finding this information to be useful, help others in your position discover us by giving us a star rating and leaving a comment. We'll see you next week.